It's time to resume the tier lists. That's right, we're moving closer to Gondor now, like the different tiers of Minas Tirith. Today we're going to do the Return of the King expansion for Lord of the Rings the card game, which includes what was the Flame of the West expansion and the Mountain of Fire expansion. For today's list, I'm using screenshots from RingsDB, which is a site that's going to get a lot of mention on the channel coming up. If you want to see more videos on Lord of the Rings the card game, you're in the right spot. I'm Jackson Warfield. Welcome to Jackson's Warfield, and let's get started. Starting with Éowyn. Now, this isn't the first time we've seen Éowyn. Éowyn was originally one of the core set heroes. So we have Spirit Éowyn in the core set and Tactics Éowyn. And like with, I think, every other card, the two different hero versions of the card have the exact same stats or, attributes here. Éowyn's got a threat cost of 9 with 4 willpower, 1 attack, 1 defense, 3 health. Although this is now Tactics Éowyn's ability. Tactics Éowyn's ability, first in setup, you reduce your threat by 3. And then you, at one point during the game, you can raise your threat by 3 to ready Éowyn, and she gets plus 9 attack until the end of the phase. So this attack is basically from...
I am no man.
Éowyn from the core set was one of the best cards, if not the best card in the core set, and was an easy S tier card. Core set Éowyn is Spirit Éowyn, and Spirit Éowyn's ability was you could also discard a card to get an extra willpower, so you're potentially questing with 5 willpower. Tactics Éowyn, questing with 4 willpower from Tactics is a very rare thing. I think Tactics Theoden is maybe the best other example of strong questing from Tactics, but no other hero in the game has a willpower higher than 4. So the question here for Tactics Éowyn is whether or not you prefer to be a little more balanced to, say, get the high questing and the strong attack versus Spirit Éowyn, which is all about questing. And the fact that Spirit Éowyn is in Spirit also means Spirit Éowyn has access to better questing cards and arguably a better card pool. Some people say they like Tactics Éowyn better than Spirit Éowyn. I like Spirit Éowyn a little bit better, but Tactics Éowyn is still really great. Even if you never used Tactics Éowyn's ability for that one-time attack, there's a threat cost of 6 for 4 willpower. It's absurd. S tier for Tactics Éowyn. Some people would say that's the best Éowyn card. Next hero is another hero that's getting a second card. This is Baragon. Baragon of Spirit. This is now we're getting the Spirit example of a Tactics hero. We used to have Tactics Baragon only. Now this is Spirit Baragon. Spirit Baragon has a threat cost of 10, 0 willpower, 1 attack, 4 defense, 4 health. Baragon is the best defender in the game. I don't think there's an argument to be made for anyone else. Baragon's the best defender. The question is, which Baragon is better? This Baragon is Sentinel, and as a response after Baragon defends an attack and takes no damage, you reduce defending player's threat by 1. Tactics Baragon, you had the advantage of cheap attachments. So basically, you could play the Gondorian Shield and the Spear of the Citadel on Tactics Baragon for free. You get this, defending tank. And if you had any way to ready Tactics Baragon, you just keep defending. Arguably, you still do that with Spirit Baragon, but instead of getting free attachments, you get that response where you actually get to now reduce your threat. So kind of like Éowyn that we just talked about, like Tactics Éowyn. Spirit Baragon is kind of doing 2 things now. Instead of specializing and just being an amazing defender, Spirit Baragon is an amazing defender that also manages your threat. Spirit Baragon is also very good. Very good. These cards that we got in the Fellowship of the Ring, compared to some of the earlier expansions, especially ones that didn't get repackaged, are stellar cards that have multiple uses without being just kind of lukewarm at 3 different things. Sparrow.
What do you mean? An African or European swallow?
Spirit Baragon is also in the S tier, just like Tactics Baragon, S tier. To be able to defend with 4, with health of 4, and keep your threat under control is amazing. Compared to a card like Elfhelm from the Dead Marshes, which is an ally where you could pretty much cancel out threat increases that were not from the end of the round. Baragon lets you just reduce threat when you defend, which can cancel out your turn-by-turn increase to threat. You could argue he's a better threat reduction card than he is the defender, which is absurd. S tier for Spirit Baragon. Next, we have Éomer, which is another hero we've seen before. Éomer, this is Leadership Éomer. Leadership Éomer is a Rohan here. I haven't been saying the traits, I guess. So Éowyn is Rohan, obviously. Baragon is Gondor. Éomer is Rohan. The Noble and Warrior stuff isn't, that significant for deck building purposes, really. It's not nothing, but it's not super significant. Éomer's got a threat cost of 10, 1 willpower, 3 attack, 2 defense, and 4 health. Leadership Éomer has the ability where after Éomer commits to a quest, you spend 1 resource from his resource pool to declare him as an attacker and resolve the attack, which would be kind of silly to declare him as an attacker and that's it, against an enemy in the staging area. So this is similar to core set Aragorn, actually. 1, they're both leadership. 2, after questing, you then spend a resource from the resource pool to do something. Aragorn is ready to basically do whatever. Éomer, you have to attack, but because you get to attack in the staging area, it's better than a normal attack because you don't have to wait for any of the defenders now to attack you. You can kill someone before they actually come at you and engage you in all that stuff. This is a very good ability. It actually combines what you'll see with a lot of Rohan decks of the attacking in the staging area. As far as another core set hero to compare to, Daenerys, the other Rohan staging area attacker in the core set, can't quest and do it, so Éomer is doing both. It's also really good. So Tactics Éomer is also one of my favorite cards because Tactics Éomer can put together a huge attack. If you have a character leading play and you also give Éomer Firefoot, Tactics Éomer can get an attack of 7, but it's a normal attack. If you have Firefoot, which is Tactics Sphere, to be clear, so it's not the same sphere as Leadership Éomer, but if you get Firefoot on Leadership Éomer, you can attack for 5 in the staging area, which can take out a lot of enemies, a lot more than Daenerys is going to be able to take out. You also have Theodred, who will give a resource to someone after Theodred commits to a quest. So you could use Theodred's resource to pump up Éomer, just like you may have used Theodred's resource to pump up Aragorn. Theodred's also Rohan. I think Éomer's in the A tier. I can't quite put him at S tier, partially because the bar is being raised so high with these other heroes, with the ones we just talked about. But Leadership Éomer is excellent. It's the same thing. Whereas Tactics Éomer was all about attacking, this is all about attacking, but in a specific way that's really helps you in questing because you also get to take out enemies before you even resolve the quest. And if you give him some sort of attachment that gives him more willpower, he's also stronger there. So yeah, A tier only because his willpower is still like 1 and he does need to spend that resource. I almost feel like these other cards are so good that he would need to just get a free attack to be at the same level. So A tier for Éomer. And I also like to mention this all the time. Éomer is probably my favorite character, at least from the Lord of the Rings movies. I don't know necessarily about the books, but from the movies because, he's just a normal human, whereas even Aragorn's like a superhuman in a way. He's a normal human in a universe of a bunch of, things that are a lot stronger than humans, and he holds up his end of the bargain pretty well. Yeah, I like Éomer. Also, Carl Urban's he's one of my favorite actors, I'd say. Top 10. Next hero we have is Tom Cotton. Apologies for a little bit of a blurry image here on Rings TV. There's no other Tom Cotton card. Tom Cotton, related, yes, to Rosie Cotton. You also might not have noticed Tom Cotton, or known who Tom Cotton is if you didn't read the books because you didn't have the scouring of the Shire of the movies. Tom Cotton is a hobbit with a threat cost of 8, 1 willpower, 1 attack, 3 defense, and 3 health. And that's pretty beefy for a hobbit. While you're engaged with an enemy with an engagement cost higher than your threat, which is the theme with hobbits, the first hobbit ally you play each round does not require a resource match. And then as a response, after a hobbit ally enters play, who may not have needed a resource match, gets +2 attack until the end of the round. So Tom Cotton turns your hobbits into fighters, which is normally not what you're doing with hobbits. So a lot of the hobbits will get benefits by having enemies with engagement costs higher than your threat. And then when you do things like engage enemies, you get little boosts. Take Sam Gamgee from Fellowship of the Ring / the Black Riders, for example. If you actually want to do fighting with hobbits, though, you need Tom Cotton, and you probably need a character like Tactics Mary with the Dagger of Westerness. Tom Cotton's very solid. It's fighting hobbits isn't exactly a deck I will use a lot of the time, though. Usually if I'm going hobbits, I'm trying to sneak around and quest strongly. There aren't that many hobbit allies either. But Tom Cotton is actually a very strong defender. It is the same defensive traits as Denethor from the core set, which is to say, as high defense as any core set hero. 3 health isn't amazing, but for a hobbit, that's very good. Tom Cotton's in the B tier, just because of how rare it is that I'm trying to do tactics hobbits. Like, you need to have 2 players, like playing two-handed, to consider rolling out Tom Cotton, unless you're trying to challenge yourself and say, like, I need to get hobbit fighters. Because otherwise, it's tough to justify Tom Cotton being one of your 3 hobbit heroes, if that's what you're doing. And if you're not going with just hobbit heroes or like a full-on pipe deck, you probably don't have that many hobbit allies. So yeah, Tom Cotton's in the B tier. Good, but not often coming out of the binder or the deck box or whatever your storage mechanism is. You can't see my storage over here. I've updated my storage lately. Check the link on the screen if you want to see how I've sorted things. I have actually updated that to fit in boxes instead of the card holder shoe boxes. Moving on to allies now. First we have Grimbold, the tactics ally. Grimbold is an ally with cost 3, 2 willpower, 1 attack, 1 defense, and 2 health. Rohan. You can tell when they're Rohan characters because they all have names that, I don't know, they just sound like they're from Rohan. I don't think it's Rohanian. I don't think it's Rohirrim, though, either. I guess Rohirrim-ish. Rohirish. As a combat action, you can discard Grimbold to choose an enemy engaged with a player, and that enemy cannot attack the player this phase. So the way you use Grimbold, one, he's actually giving you a lot of willpower for a tactics ally. That's actually a lot of willpower for a tactics ally. And you're probably going to quest with Grimbold for a couple of rounds. Then when the opportunity is right, probably where Grimbold only has 1 life left, you discard Grimbold and you effectively get a feint action for the cost of getting rid of Grimbold. Remember, though, with Rohan cards, when characters leave play, such as just mentioned with Tactics Eomer, that can trigger a lot of abilities. You want to have a lot of that going on in Rohan decks. So if you're going with Rohan decks and you have access to Grimbold, arguably you want to use Grimbold instead of Feint, or at least in addition to Feint. Now, Grimbold is expensive. Cost of 3, you're, in my opinion, only really considering Grimbold if you're running a deck of all tactics cards. It's really hard to fit a lot of cards in your deck that take more than 1 turn to save up for in the Lord of the Rings card game. That's like one of my rules of thumb for deck building. You want to limit those cards. 2 turns is kind of the limit, too. But you can do 2 turns with 2 tactics heroes without any resource acceleration. The original version of Horn of Gondor would have given you an extra resource when Grimbold left play. But the errata for Horn of Gondor means that you only get a resource when a character is destroyed. So you discarding Grimbold doesn't destroy him. So Horn of Gondor doesn't trigger here to pay you back for Grimbold. Grimbold is also in the B tier. Very good and can be used very well in Rohan decks. But the cost of 3 is a lot. And that's kind of my thing with some of the decks is, he's 2 willpower. You don't want to just kind of get rid of him. Unless you got another copy ready to go and enough resources ready to go, you're going to hesitate. It's going to be like one of the last rounds of the game to consider this. Maybe you're using this to build up a big Eomer attack, but it's rare that 1 attack is going to be what wins you the game. That's why it's B tier. I don't think he doesn't completely replace Feint. At a cost of 2, absolutely. But a cost of 3, not quite. Next, we have Prince Imrahil, the ally version of Prince Imrahil. There are 2 hero versions of Prince Imrahil. So you can't use the ally version of Prince Imrahil if you have one of those heroes, whether leadership or tactics Prince Imrahil. Ally Prince Imrahil is a cost 4 spirit ally. He's got 2 willpower, 2 attack, 2 defense, 3 health. The hero has 4 health. There is usually a difference between the hero version of a character and the ally version of a character. Imrahil is a Gondorian ally. And while there is a hero card in your discard pile, Prince Imrahil loses the ally card type and gains the hero card type. So if you're new to Lords of the Card Game, you might not be aware of how significant this card is. In the original run of the game, a very common hero was Caldara. A lot of people say Caldara was the best hero in the game because of how Caldara worked with Prince Imrahil specifically. Caldara was not reprinted with any of the new stuff. The echo of Caldara is more faint now, but the way Caldara worked was you would discard Caldara and then get one spirit ally from your discard pile for every other spirit hero you had. So if you had 3 spirit heroes and discarded Caldara, you could get 2 spirit allies basically in exchange. And here's the thing. Prince Imrahil, by getting the hero card type when you had a hero in your discard pile, would take Caldara's spot. So you would get like 2 strong allies for free. Well, really just one, because I guess, Prince Imrahil, the ally, actually has better stats than Caldara did, so you would replace Caldara with a slightly stronger version as a hero. And then you got another ally for free for Caldara's ability once you had this set up where you had Imrahil in your discard pile. In that context, Imrahil, easy S tier. Now, though, given how rare it is to get your hands on a copy of Caldara, which I guess you could always proxy one of these cards, but I think knocks you down a little bit. There's also the fact that it is usually really hard to win the Lords of the Card game if you have a fallen hero and more than like 1 or 2 turns left, because it cuts off your resource generation. Because of all this, Prince Imrahil loses a little bit for not having Caldara around as much, but by making the game more fun because it gives you a way out if you lose a hero. And there's also just a strong character if you want to just play him normally, like as strength is like Haldir of Lorien, just without Ranged and Sentinel. And also, it's not like you have to play him after the discard. You can have him in play, and then when you lose a hero, he just steps up. Imrahil's in the A tier. Yeah, not quite S tier anymore. Was S tier, now A tier. Very good ally. Next, we have Halbarad. Halbarad is a Dunedain leadership sphere ally. Halbarad has a cost of 4 with 2 willpower, 2 attack, 2 defense. You reduce the cost to play Halbarad by 1 for each enemy engaged with you. And then each enemy engaged with you gets plus 10 engagement cost. So Halbarad has 2 main synergies. One is with all the Dunedain characters. So if you have Angmar Awakened in the revised stuff, you got a lot of Dunedain cards. And Halbarad slots right into there as long as you're not using Hero Halbarad. And Hero Halbarad is a good hero, not amazing. So it's not like you are going to be stuck with this Halbarad always out there, in the binder when you're playing Dunedain decks. You could definitely get allied Halbarad in there, depending on what other heroes you want to do. Basically, Hero Halbarad isn't an auto-include for Dunedain decks. If you're playing Dunedain, you will probably have at least 1 enemy engaged with you, maybe more each round. So realistically, Halbarad's cost is like 3 or 2. A cost of 2, that's very good. Halbarad also gets the other synergy that Halbarad gets is with hobbits. By increasing the engagement cost of your enemies, you trigger a lot of hobbit abilities. If you're engaged with an enemy with a threat of 30 and your threat is 35, and then you have Halbarad in play, that enemy effectively has a threat of 40, which means that Tom Cotton's ability is going to trigger, who we just talked about, where the first Hobbit ally you play every round doesn't need a sphere match. And that's really what Dunedain characters do. They kind of worked with Hobbits as well as other Dunedain characters. They're kind of, if you go with like 2-handed, it's fun to do 1 hand of Hobbits, 1 hand of Dunedain Rangers. I'm going to give Halbarad the ally B tier. Because it's really like a cost of 3. No, maybe he's A tier. No, I think he's B tier for 2 reasons. One, the standard of cards is being raised, and in the modern card pool, because the cards you're getting here in the Return of King set, for example, just have to compete with the other revised content cards. You don't compare them as much to the old stuff that didn't get reprinted. And a lot of that old stuff wasn't very good. So we're talking like B tier here. But the other reason why we're talking B tier instead of A tier is just with Dunedain decks, it's usually optimal to have 1 enemy engaged with you, because then you trigger a lot of the engagement effects, maybe not all of them, but a lot of them, without flying too close to the sun. So you're probably getting Halbarad for a cost of 3 most of the time, which is still very good, but not, the extra engagement cost in a pure Dunedain deck doesn't help that much. It's really more of a Hobbit thing. So the benefit isn't quite as high. So yeah, B tier for Halbarad. Next up is the lore hero, or lore ally, Gonburigan. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Gonburigan is a Woz, and he's got a cost of 2, X willpower, 1 attack, 1 defense, and 2 health. X is the threat of the active location. And as a travel action, you can discard Gonburigan to travel to a location without resolving its travel effect. That can come in handy a lot of times, that discard effect, to travel without resolving a travel effect. Especially in a lot of modern quests, where it seems like almost everything is either a location that's really bad or has a travel effect, or both. I mean, it's a pretty common thing. Now, it's an interesting twist, because to use Gonburigan's travel action, you have to discard Gonburigan. So you don't want to use a travel action when you're about to travel to an active location that has a very high threat cost, which is also the type of location you'll want to travel to. So if you have some locations have threats of 4 or 5, and that's when you want to use it. But also sometimes those cards will have reasons that discourage you from traveling there, because otherwise they're easy to deal with. Oh, threat of 5, just travel to it, because you get that threat out of the staging area. So it's kind of a weird spot. I don't really use Gonburigan that much. Woz doesn't give also a ton of synergies. In fact, I don't think it gives any synergies. Fun fact, if you search for Gonburigan on Google, it'll return results in, I think that's Sindarin. They're from the Druidon Forest, which, if you have the old stuff, you had, when you had like the Dunlin Trap and things like that, like you had some quests that went around that area of Middle Earth. I don't know. Gonburigan's in the D tier. I struggle to find an excuse to use Gonburigan. I feel like the old Khazad-dûm expansions might have been the best ones to use them for, but that's also, an echo of the past at this point. D tier for Gonburigan. Next up is Rosy Cotton. Rosy Cotton is the leadership Hobbit ally. For a cost of 2, you get 2 willpower and 2 health. As an action, you can exhaust Rosy Cotton to choose a Hobbit hero and an attribute, so any attribute on that hero, and you add Rosy Cotton's willpower to that chosen attribute until the end of the phase. Very often you'll use this with Sam Gamgee, which feels right. Sam is a leadership Hobbit, so you're almost always going to include Rosy Cotton when you have Sam. Of course you will. Now, when you use Rosy Cotton's ability on a character like Tom Cotton to give Tom Cotton better defense, it feels like cheating. Although maybe that's not the best example, because that's Rosy Cotton's dad.
What in the name?
If you use on like Spirit or any of the Merry or Pippin or Frodo characters, that's when it feels like cheating. Oh god. Rosy Cotton's very good. A tier. The reason why Rosy Cotton's actually 2 costs for 2 willpower is very good. It's in leadership, which makes it even better that you're getting that much willpower for 2 resources. But the fact that you can wait, you don't have to commit Rosy to the quest, and then you can add the willpower before a quest resolution, for example, or wait and hold it back if you don't need it. That's excellent. That's all Rosy Cotton does. Rosy Cotton's in the A tier. Very solid. Slight mark against it for making me say things that I regret on my channel. Moving on to Elfhelm. Elfhelm's a tactics Rohan ally. For a cost of 4, you get 1 willpower, 2 attack, and 2 defense. 3 health for Elfhelm, and this is separate from the tactics. This is separate from the Spirit Elfhelm that I mentioned earlier in the video. You can spend 1 resource from a Rohan hero's resource pool to put Elfhelm into play from your hand or your control, and then at the end of play, you discard him. So kind of like Ranger of Cardolan, kind of like using sneak attack with Gandalf. These cards with the built-in sneak attack is pretty cool. I mean, obviously, Elfhelm doesn't do anything upon entering play, but just a very strong ally that you can just drop into play, and then you can then discard Elfhelm, which is also important for Rohan, because you can then get all the abilities that trigger across Rohan cards when a character leaves play. So very, very useful Rohan card in that regard. I feel better about Elfhelm than I do Grimbold, because you playing for 1 cost, you get the ability, plus you get to use them for a round. Now, it doesn't have something like 2 willpower like Grimbold has, but Elfhelm is that's a pretty solid defender. The 2 attack can be used, but the 2 defense with 3 health that can survive a good number of attacks. We're talking strong defender here. And then if Elfhelm doesn't survive an attack as a defender, like I said, you're playing to trigger the discarding abilities anyway. Sometimes you may want to spend 4 just to get Elfhelm into play, but just need a lot of characters and you have a lot of resources. But Elfhelm's ability is really just the entering play with the cost of 1. For a cost of 4, you're kind of overpaying for a character like this. We've just seen a handful of allies like Halbarad and Prince Imrahil, which give you better deals than 4 for the 1, 2, 2, 3 that you get with Elfhelm. It's right there at the line between A tier and B tier. I think I'm going to go B tier just because the bar's been raised so much, but very close to A tier for Elfhelm. Good card. Next, we got the twins. First, Eladon. Eladon is a Noldor ranger. This is lore Eladon. So you have Eladon already as Tactics Eladon. The hero version of Eladon is Tactics Eladon. This is the lore version of Eladon. Eladon's a Noldor ranger, like I said, with a cost of 3, 2 willpower, 1 attack, 1 defense, 3 health. While Elrahir is in play, if you're not familiar, Eladon and Elrahir are Elrond's twin sons, the older brothers of Arwen. It's either, I forgot if it's I think it's Born of Hope is the fan-made movie that might have had Eldon and Elrahir as characters. Was the old Hunt for Gollum or Born of Hope? Those are very good fan-made movies, as far as fan-made movies go. The response is after you optionally engage an orc enemy, you ready Eladon. So, 1, you're using Eladon for fighting orcs. There are a lot of orcs. Like, maybe half the scenarios in Learning the Card Game involve you fighting orcs. Maybe not half, but a lot of them. So that happens a lot. You get in the +2 attack when Elrahir is in play is also a nice boost. I'm going to talk about these together. So we're going to do this a little bit in a strange order. So Elrahir, this is Spirit Elrahir. The hero version of Elrahir is leadership. Everything's the same as Eladon, except when Eladon's in play, Elrahir gets +2 defense. And then after you optionally engage an orc enemy, you also ready Elrahir. So if you engage an orc, you get to ready both of them, which is really cool. So if you want to get Eladon and Elrahir working, what you have to do is you need to have 1, access to both lore and spirit resources, which is actually a pretty decent combo. 2, you get them both in play, both for a cost of 3. And then 3, you probably want to be fighting orcs. You cannot use the hero versions, and the hero versions have a similar effect on each other, where Elrahir gets better defense and Eladon gets better attack. And they also can be readied, but you ready them by spending resources. Here you get readied when you engage orcs. I don't know. It's very, very thematic. C tier because I don't really play them that much. It's the right spheres, though. Unlike the hero versions, it's the right spheres to get Noldor going. But 2 cards that are each a cost of 3 takes quite a bit to get into play. By that point, you will have wished you already had, more characters fighting in there. But for like big battle quests, definitely have their uses, but definitely C tier, especially compared to the cards we're talking about today. All right, moving on to attachments. We got the Golden Shield. Golden Shield is it's armor attachment for 1 cost. It's a tactics attachment. You attach it to a Rohan hero. That's it. It's restricted, and then after the hero is declared as a defender, you exhaust the Golden Shield to add the hero's willpower to its defense for this attack. One great example, use it on Éowyn, and Éowyn now has defense of 5. Rohan characters tend to have pretty strong willpower. Another spot to use it is on Theoden. If you have any copy of Theoden, now we're talking about 4 or 5 for the defense for Theoden. But it's Rohan only. To be honest, I kind of like cards like that. I like that type of restriction. It just is what it is. It's an A tier card for me. Can't use it universally, but Rohan heroes have such strong willpower numbers that it's just a very good shield. Like a shield with 2 extra defense is already a good shield. Gondorian Shield, for example, is cost 1 for +2 defense for Gondor characters. Golden Shield is 1 cost for usually +2, but potentially like +4. Like I said, if you use it on Éowyn. So A tier for Golden Shield. Next is Livery of the Tower. This is a Livery of the Tower. I feel like there's more of a British word. Spirit attachment. It's an item and armor attached to a Gondor hero, also restricted. As a response, you can spend X resources from the attached hero's pool to cancel X damage just dealt to an attached hero. This will also remind longtime players of Gondorian Fire, or what's the other one? The Blood of Gondor? Blood of Numenor, that's what it is. Blood of Gondor is the expansion, where you're spending resources to make things happen. This is like another version of that. These goes well with Gondor cards too, because one thing you're doing with Gondor is you're trying to pile up resources and have them sitting around. Like if you have Boromir, you need to keep one resource on him. So you spend resources. If you have a nice flow of resources, you just get to keep canceling damage. It can be useful for 0 cost to just cancel like one thing of damage, like one piece of damage that might have, that might be the one to take out the hero. So it's just solid damage cancellation. The fact that it's coming out of Spirit is a little bit weird and makes it less useful, because very often if you have a combat focused deck, you're not going to have access to Spirit. That's not true of Gondor too. Because of that, and that was the problem with Blood of Numenor anyway. Because of that, I put in Library of the Tower. Livery of the Tower?
Kim Basinger? Basinger? Basinger?
It's C tier. I think to be in the B tier, you got to be not an auto-include, but kind of have a spot in a deck you're definitely going to use. I don't know that you're always going to use Library of the Tower. Next is Rohirrim. Rohirrim is the leadership mount. For a cost of 2, you attach Rohirrim to a Dunedain hero, but probably Aragorn if you're going to, if you have the chance. If he attaches the Aragorn gets the tactics icon, which is a theme with other Aragorn attachments like the Ring of Barahir or Celebrian Stone. After you optionally engage an enemy, you exhaust Rohirrim and the attached hero to declare that hero as an attacker and resolves attack against that enemy. So you can use Rohirrim to have, like, say, on leadership Aragorn, to keep him ready and then do basically what Éomer does and attack someone before they attack you. Now, you don't get to avoid the engagement. It is a cost of 2, but you do get that resource icon. This is one of those cards you just throw in Aragorn decks. If you want a deck where you just want to pump up Aragorn as much as possible, this is an easy throw-in. It's not a restricted attachment. It's a mount, but... Oh, geez, the guy just called me. Oh, I got to call him back. All right, whatever. Of course, of all the times to call me. It's a little underwhelming as an attachment. It's an auto-include for Aragorn decks, but partially because there aren't that many cards that go in Aragorn decks. It's just kind of anything you look up, look up, name Aragorn, search, and then include it all. That's how you make your Aragorn decks. C tier. I got to be picky here. It's C tier. It's fine. It's not amazing. It could be very good. There are other mounts you might even want to consider with Aragorn too. Like you could argue that you want to use Armored Destrier instead of Rohirrim if you're talking about a mount. But I guess in theory you could have both. I guess so. You're kind of armoring Rohirrim, but you're still using 2 resources. C tier. C tier. Guthwine is an attachment, also a leadership attachment for cost 2. It's a weapon that you attach to a Rohan hero. And after the attached hero is declared as an attacker, you exhaust Guthwine to give that hero +2 attack for this attack. If it destroys an enemy, you return a Rohan ally from your discard pile to your hand. So Guthwine is a good way to take all these Rohan allies in your discard pile that are just sitting there like, Elfhelm or Grimbold, and then bring them back into your hand. You also get +2 attack. Now, you have to exhaust Guthwine so you don't get more than 1 attack of +2 in a round. But that's not that big of a deal. You get that 1 attack, and that's good. So, when it's only on Rohan, leadership is pretty good for Rohan. You got a lot of leadership Rohan characters like Éomer, for example. It can be a good replacement, too, if you don't have maybe every attachment that goes on, like if you don't have Riders of Rohan, and you need to get more attachments for Éomer, it's a very good one. I think Guthwine's in the A tier, and that's because of how important it is to not run out of Rohan allies. If you're discarding them, you need to flow them back in your hand and keep playing them. Otherwise, you have to have a deck of like 35 to 40 ally cards. It's A tier. Lower A tier, though, like A-. Friend of Friends. This is a sphereless tough word to say, attachment. For a cost of 1, it's a condition, and you attach it to a Hobbit hero. You can have 2 copies in place, so you can't do 3 friends of friends, just 2 friend of friends. Guests of guests may not invite guests. While another hero has friend of friends attached hero gets +1 willpower, attack, defense, and hit point. So what you do is you attach it to Frodo and Sam. And just like the card, now they're both stronger. Hooray! It's in the C tier for me. It's just the fact that you need 2. You only get 3 copies of any card in your deck in Lorne's a Card Game. So getting both out there is, it's not that bad. If they were both free, it'd be obviously be higher. I honestly think it should be free though. It's 2 costs then otherwise to get the bonuses, but spread them across 2 characters that you're probably only using for 1 thing in a turn each. Needing the 2 cards is it. It's C tier. Yeah, that's just my weird way I say words sometimes. C tier. It's a C tier card. Sterner Than Steel. The tactics event. As a response, you exhaust a weapon or armor card attached to the defending character to cancel a shadow effect just triggered during combat. Cost of 0. So Sterner Than Steel is like a shadow cancellation, but instead of paying 1 like you do for Hasty Stroke, you exhaust a weapon or armor attachment, which is, I think, less of a cost. It's a very good shadow cancellation card. It's in tactics where you're going to be fighting. I really like this card. It's really annoying how the best shadow cancellation card in the game is in Spirit, when most Spirit characters have no business fighting.
It's just business. Lord business.
It's reasonable to have a cost to exhaust a weapon or armor card. I like the motivation to have to get more weapons and armor cards out there. If you're playing with Dale, also, you have no shortage of those. A tier. If it were just 0 cost, cancel a shadow effect, I actually could see that with some other restriction that's easier to avoid, like it said, cancel a shadow effect only against Rohan or something. I could see that. I could have seen that being a card, but it's not. But this is a card. Sterner Than Steel is a card. It's in the A tier. Desperate Defense. The Spirit event cost 1. After a Sentinel character is declared as a defender, such as Baragon, it gets +2 defense for this attack. If this attack deals no damage, ready to the defending character. So this is a fun way to get more than 1 defense out of Baragon. +2 defense, plus whatever extra defense you might be getting by attaching like a Gondorian shield to Baragon. This gets you probably another action, because 6 defense is a pretty good way to avoid getting any damage. You're probably not using this on any character besides Baragon, because basically everyone, there's some risk of taking damage. So if you're going to use it, you're going to use it on Baragon, because it just has the highest defense number. It's still C tier though. It's cool. The 1 cost for a refresh is, compared to other cards, it's just kind of expensive. Like for 2 costs, you could just attach Unexpected Courage to a character, attach Unexpected Courage to Baragon. It's in the same sphere, so you probably have that card. And then you can just refresh, or ready Baragon for free repeatedly. Compared to paying 1, you get the extra defense for that attack, but you don't get the extra defense the rest of the round, which is actually an important difference, because then you ready, like Baragon, for example, and then the next deck you're back down to your normal defense, which is still 4, which is probably good, but yeah. C tier. 2 more cards to go. First, the Leadership event. Captains of the West. For a cost of 3, you get a quest action. Until the end of the phase, each noble hero gets +1 willpower and does not exhaust to commit to the quest. I like this card because we've been seeing noble traits on cards since the core set with barely anything to do with them. It's like, what do you put them in the expensive area of your card storage solution because they're nobles? So that much is fun. If you're running a multi-trait deck, going with noble synergy is a good way to bring everyone together, just like as indicated on the artwork for the card. It only applies to heroes, and it's a cost of 3. As a comparison, you have cards like Astonishing Speed, which was in Return to Mirkwood, so it's tough to get, but it's in Riders of Rohan too. Astonishing Speed, for a cost of 3, it's a spirit card. All Rohan characters get +2 willpower. Compared to that, now we're talking all noble heroes. For all noble characters, I don't know how common noble allies are, but You get less willpower, but they also don't exhaust. That's a pretty big part of this. You're often using these cards to do a final quest push to end the game. But if you need a big quest push, but you're not going with everybody, you need to keep fighting, you can use this on all your nobles. You can quest with them without any concern that you won't have them to fight, because then you can keep fighting. So this can allow really good turns for both questing and fighting, where a card like Astonishing Speed, you go, if you're going to send all your Rohan characters together, like in the movie. B tier. They really did a good job with some of these cards. Like, you could argue that they're all kind of the same strength, like the tier listing. We're splitting hairs here. I think it's a B tier card. Could definitely use it, especially if you're playing with a lot of players. Like, you're playing 3-player or 4-player, and you're going with multiple traits. Everyone has their own trait. Huge card to use there. No, it's A tier. What am I saying? A tier for that reason. Last card, Raise the Shire, a 1-cost tactics event. As a response, after you engage an enemy, search the top 5 cards of your deck for a Hobbit ally and put it into play. Now, to be fair, look at this artwork. It's no AI in this. This was designed well before that. But I feel like AI art just looks like this. Then Hobbits look silly. Look like chibis almost. Search the top 5 cards of your deck and for a Hobbit ally and put it into play. You search your entire deck if your enemy's engagement cost, if that enemy's engagement cost is higher than your threat. Then shuffle your deck at the end of the round. If that ally is still in play, return it to your hand. So, not discard, return to your hand. So it's kind of like a card draw, where in the process of being drawn, that Hobbit of your choice, which there aren't any like really strong Hobbits, but whatever Hobbit you want gets a round in play. Just try to keep them alive, and then bring it to your hand. And now you got an extra card for a cost of 1. It's pretty good. Honestly, I think it's kind of an auto-include if you're doing tactics Hobbits and you have room in your deck. So if you're doing like at least 2 tactics Hobbits characters, so you have Tom Cotton and Merry, for example, you definitely need this card. The one drawback is probably just the fact that Hobbits are kind of weak, and there aren't that many Hobbits, period. Like, if you talk about Hobbit allies, you got Bywater, Sheriff, not a lot of people might have. You do have Farmer Maggot. Some people might have Tactics Pippin as an ally. B tier because you don't have a lot of tactics Hobbit ally choices. But it doesn't have to just be for tactics. It's just that would make it a better card if you had a bigger pool assumed when you're going with this card. So B tier. Auto-include in certain circumstances, but still kind of limited circumstances. All right, and that's the last of the Lord of the Rings Saga tier lists. Now, to be clear, when I'm doing these, I'm doing tier lists for the reprinted content for Lord of the card game. Whenever I go with the old stuff, I usually just do like a top 10 cards thing. If you want to see any of those videos, you got to subscribe to the channel. We don't have to subscribe to the channel. But if you want to see any of the new videos as they come out, a good way to make sure you can do that is to subscribe to Jackson's Warfield. Thanks for watching. Happy to hear any comments people have. If you have comments, put them in the comments. Remember, you can become a member of the channel, and for the cost of, for much less than the cost of this game now, you can support the channel and get some cool videos delivered a little bit early. So thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.